Welcome to Inside ArtScroll, where the books that we read and the people that write them come to life. It is a pleasure and an honor to welcome for the very first time as an author, Rabbi Yitzchok Saftlas, Shlita.
Mr.
Yitzchok Saftlas.
Mr. Yitzchok Saftlas.
And Mazel Tov on your first book.
Thank you.
Super exciting.
Thank you.
The book Winning Relationships.
Yes.
And I feel like if there's one guy in Klal Yisrael that could write the book, it's probably you.
I'm touched. Thank you.
So tell us, what does it feel
gracious.
like to have your first book, hold your first book in your hand for the first time?
First of all, shkoyach, Mazel Tov on your book.
Thank you.
Yes. Was that your first ArtScroll book?
This is my second one.
Okay.
But it felt good too.
One second, let me take that back. You're interviewing me here. So, okay.
Correct.
Okay. First of all, it's a tremendous schus and treat to actually be back at ArtScroll. I was zeichet to work for Rav Meir Zatzal, and of course under Rav Nassan and Rav Shia from 89 to 92. And that's where I learned the ropes. And I learned so much from Rav Meir and the other ones, which actually made it into the book. There's a lot of personal anecdotes and lessons that made it into the book. But being back at ArtScroll is a reunion. Rav Gedalia, I said that, Rav Gedalia, I'm so happy to be back at ArtScroll. He says, Yitzchok, you never left. That's very
so
special.
Nice.
Very special. But thank you, and it's very, very special. In fact, how the book came about was that over the years, for many years I actually had a show on 77 WABC, and I'd be interviewing Fortune 500 executives, and they would say, some very, very smart, wise things. So of course we know the Gemara, Megillah, Chochma B'Gaim Tamin, great. But then I'm like, Mava Sedra each week, I'm like, wow, this idea, it's right here. It's right here in the Torah. Now, as an aside, I was very close to Rabbi Victor Miller. I was zeichet to go on walks. I went on one-on-one walks up King's Highway.
This is before the popular Torah Savigdor.
This is before Torah Savigdor. Torah Savigdor is an unbelievable nace, because these people, they weren't necessarily close to Rav Miller, and just it shows how Kadosh Baruch Hu orchestrated it. So I was zeichet to go on walks. And when the iPod came out, when the Yeshiva Gedolah Beis Yisrael, the son of Shmuel Miller, and they put out the iPod after the P'tira of Miller, and that had all 2,000, all the Thursday nights, and the R series, and Shari Tshuva, and Chavos Avavos, etc. So I was lucky to get the iPod right away. And on average, I listen to the iPod around 3 hours a week. It's unbelievable. People ask, Simchas HaChaim? You get the Rav Miller iPod, you're fine. So Shir 376 is called Council of Torah. And he brings a Sifri that says, Eitzais Hainu Torah. And Rav Miller spends, the whole Shir is on this topic, but the first 5-10 minutes is just specifically, it says, advice on marriage, it's right in the Torah. Advice how to get along with people, right in the Torah. Advice in business, every aspect, it's right there. And he says it's so simple, you just have to know to look for it. That's what Miller says. Anyone has a question? 376, Shir, Council of Torah. And of course, I came across that Shir, and then it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm interviewing these Fortune 500 executives. Rav Miller says it's right there. Open your eyes, Yitzchok, open your eyes. I started doing that, and that's how the book came to be.
Beautiful.
So it was a 7-year journey. And by the way, that's another lesson. So, by the way, feel free to interrupt me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm fascinated.
Okay, I'm so
by
excited
everything you're saying, so it's all good.
One of the lessons that I learned from Rav Meir Zatzal, and I was close to Rav Meir. Merely until it was Kamaz's last day, I was trying to go to visit him in Manhattan on the Erev Shabbos right before his P'tira. One of the lessons is that when I think about it, I'm 7 years. 7 years? Shemitah. 7 years. If there's one thing I learned from Rav Meir is also that, the famous line from Rav Meir, right? What did Ravina say to Rav Ashi? We got to go to print. That's Rav Meir's line. And 7 years. The answer is Rav Meir had, if I could put it, let's say I'll use the letter P. There was proactiveness, there was passion, and yet at the same time there was patience. And of course at the end, you got to go to print.
I thought you were going to say prophet.
So Rav Meir, by the way, on the aside, on the note of prophet, Rav Meir, of course, understood the world of business, but at the same time, I remember specifically being in the room, there were certain books that were not profitable. Now, Hashem, please help, this book does become profitable. Yeah. But there were some books that were not profitable, but Rav Meir did it because, L'Shem Shamayim,
100%.
he understood it was for Klal Yisrael. There was no question. But anyways, coming back to Rav Meir was also a perfectionist. He was tremendous. To describe his level of perfection, he ingrained it in me. Many personal stories where he drilled in. It has to be perfect. He really demanded perfection. Of course, Rav Shia is a master craftsman and designer, v'chulu. But Rav Meir demanded that of the team, and because, not that he demanded it because he was forceful in how it had to be. It was like, we're putting out a product for Klal Yisrael. Someone's going into his farm store. They're paying for this product. They deserve a perfect product.
Beautiful.
So the project was a 7-year project, as we'd come up with a vart, and I was zeicha to work along with 2 superstar writers. Rav Mordechai Kamenetsky was a gadol in his own right, and we would talk out. A vart would come. We're doing Mava Sedra, and then there would be a vart, and then I would sparadise at him. And sometimes he would, Yitzchok, I hear where you're going with this, but not. And sometimes he would say, you know what? You could bring it out better from Yosef and the brothers than you were trying to get this. You had this idea by Avraham Avinu or by Noach, and he would go, or it's better by Moshe Rabbeinu and Yisro. And so that was a discussion. And sometimes he would actually write a chapter, although the main writer was Rabbi Binyamin Rose from Mishpacha magazine, one of the elite writers in Klal Yisrael, sure. And the enjoyment of working with Rabbi Binyamin Rose is that he's an individual who's extremely talented, but also understands, like he understood the whole concept. So he would not only work on the vart, but sometimes the pointers would actually be from him. He would suggest some of the pointers. Each chapter has a minimum of 3 takeaway pointers. So it's not, and if I may, the book is not intended to be like great Chedushei Torah. That's not the model of the book. The model of the book is, like Rav Miller said, there's a pasuk, and there's a lesson, there's a takeaway. So there's a pasuk and the brief vart, and then we go right into the practical. There's a lesson and takeaways and pointers, and always a story to go for it, to go along with it. And the story, we tried, out of the 35 microchapters, they're microchapters, each chapter is roughly a 4 to 5 minute read, 35 microchapters. We tried, and I would say probably 70% of them are a personal story that ties in to bring out the art. However, there were times when, again, at the end of the day, I wanted to bring in personal stories, but we wanted to make sure that the story drives home the point. So sometimes if Rav Mordechai or Rav Binyamin looked at it and said, you know what, I have a different story that drives home the point better, I would look at it and say, you're right, I'm going to have to let go of my own personal story there. We want to drive home the point.
So let's jump into the book for a second.
Yeah.
I walk into a Svarm store. Sitting there, front and center, is winning relationships. And I'm like, okay, I need to win relationships. What could I expect? Give me a 90-second preview of what I could walk out with after each 5-minute-a-day reads that I'm going to do for the next month.
Okay. So first of all, Yesh Koyach, Bez Hashem, people go in. First of all, I'd love to get anyone's feedback. And when you read a chapter, I have my email address in there. Send me an email. I'd love to get your feedback.
Sure.
And okay. Now, the takeaway is that we all interpersonal bein adam l'chaveroi is day to day, is interaction. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wired us as bein adam l'makom, bein adam l'chaveroi. Now, there are so many interactions, whether it's in professional life, whether it's in personal life, that people are looking for ideas. So this is not necessarily a self-help book. I'm not going to make that clear. This is not one of those publications, which there are many excellent publications that someone could pick up, like, I got a situation I got to figure out how to get out of, so let me pick up a book that I'll now know how to deal with it. No. This is rather winning relationships. This is going from good to great. So this is not a situation that, I have challenges, let me see how to deal with it. Although there is that content in the book, but in general it's winning relationships. You want to get to the next level. Let's say it's especially, by the way, suitable for anyone basically between 20 and 40, that you're getting out there into the business world and you want to know how to navigate. There's so many techniques in here. They're just real world aids, but then done in a very succinct way. That's why each bullet is basically 2 to 3 sentences. That's it. Because the intention is you could pick it up, and the feeling is, Be'ezus Hashem, that any chapter you open up and you look at it, you'll be able to walk away with something that, you know what, I can implement this in my daily life right away. So it's not something with big svaras, it's very down-to-earth common sense. When I met with Rav Gedalia about the book a few years ago, and I was thinking about maybe it should be more on the business line, he said, Yitzchok, he says, your line, we create a From Dale Carnegie book. That was his line. And that was, he set me on my mission, and that was the goal.
One of the things about the book that I really appreciated was, communication is a skill, it's an art. And some people are better communicators than others. But inevitably, we need to communicate. And sometimes the conversations are not easy. And sometimes we go into a meeting, or we go into shul, and we know or in our own family lives, there's going to be tough conversations. And I really like that you dedicated a really substantial amount of time in your book to what's the mindset, how to navigate it. I just felt that was so helpful. So because we have you, share with us the one thing that you feel like you have to have a tough conversation. It's not going to be geschmack. What should you go into that conversation, what you have in the back of your mind that you just make life a little easier?
So it's a great question. And in the book, there are 6 sections. The 35 microchapters are broken up into 6 sections. The first section is communication, because so much in life rides on communication.
We're medabrim. That's what we're called.
Medabrim, exactly. And therefore, it can't be overemphasized, or the need to become a master communicator, which really everyone could work on in their own way in order to improve their communication. At the same time, you touched on an important point, is that sometimes there's certain situations that are a bit delicate. So I actually have a separate section on diplomacy. And that is where sometimes there are delicate conversations. There's one chapter, the art of the exit. If a person's in a business relationship and maybe it's not working out, what is a mahalach? And there, I remember when I learned it, and I started dancing. Avram Avinu in Light, in Lech Lecha, when he has to part, when the shepherds they were eating from other people's property, and the question is, Avram Avinu saw and I have in here a 5-part step-by-step plan in the art of the exit. And it's clear, it's from Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu spelled it out. Because remember, he said, you want to go, you go right, I'll go left, you go left, I'll go right. What Avram Avinu was spelling out in a situation where the exit is inevitable, how to do it in a very, in the most geschmacka way for a very ungeschmacka situation, if I could put it that way. There's a chapter on that. So that's diplomacy. Also, there's by Yigash Elev Yehuda, when Yehuda, and we know the pshat that he had to champion for Binyamin, and yet at the same time he didn't want to pull out the gun, so to speak. But we know the Mefarshim bring down clear that he was going pleasant. For that story, for that chapter, I reached out to Dr. Rich Roberts. I said, Dr. Roberts, maybe you have a great, and he has an amazing story about when he was running his company, which he eventually sold. He had a rough encounter with the FDA, the government, and how he navigated it. And it was mamish a great story that brings out exactly like what happened, where he had to go as pleasant as possible, but to show that, that, as the way he puts it, he says, I wasn't going to go down with my missiles still in their silos. So that's when you bring up about communication and navigating delicate situations. That's why there's quite a few microchapters under the section of communication, and then still a few in diplomacy, because winning relationships, of course, we always want to mispal, every situation should go positive. That's great. But what happens when there's a delicate situation? There's an entire section on that.
I was looking through the book, and there's a lot of amazing stories, like you said before, so many great personal stories.
Thank you.
I didn't realize that you learned by Rabbi Trank.
Rabbi Trank.
So, I don't always do this, but can you share the story you have in the book about cleaning up from Mincha? Because that was such a beautiful ma'aseh.
Yeah. What happened was, and of course I remember it clearly, for those that were in Adelphia, right, the library was down the hall, like when you came, if you came from the main entrance, it was to the right. If you came down the hall from where the dorm was or where the classrooms were, it was to the left. Good. What happened was they were doing work inside the Beis Medrash, and they were painting the whole Beis Medrash. Fine. So it was closed for, I don't know, maybe it was a week, something like that. And everyone davened all the tefillas inside the library, as it was known. Good. So there were tables in there. Okay. Now the library was, it's a Baruch Hashem, a healthy Mesifta with Mesifta boys. So, the library was a library. You came in there, you got some books, but you have a coffee, you left it there. Sometimes it got a little messy. Fine. So, Rabbi Trank had assigned me to clean up the library. That, so if I see cups laying around, to keep it clean. Good. Kitzer, one fine day.
Because you were going to daven there, right?
And so again, we davened there, all the tefillas, but in between the tefillas, it was still a library, and people were, the hergel of it was a library, so people still came in. But again, for that week, Shachris, Mincha, Ma'ariv were inside the library. Fine. And even when everyone piled in, it was a little squishy. It was, it wasn't the same size of the Beis Medrash. So Rabbi Trank wanted that for tefillas, it should be nice. Good. So I always made sure to go in beforehand, maybe 10, 15 minutes beforehand, just to straighten things out. Fine. Kitzer, let's say it was again, one of the tefillas that someone came around and announced, said, by the way, the Beis Medrash, all the painting was finished. The tables are back in. The next tefillah, we're going to daven, I think it was Mincha. Mincha, we're going to daven inside the Beis Medrash. It came a few minutes before Mincha. Rabbi Trank said, Rabbi Isai, we're davening in the library. Good. I went to the library. They looked inside. The Beis Medrash was free. Good. We all davened in the library. At the end, Rabbi Trank gives a clap. Talmidim? Okay. Why are we in the library? He says, I assigned Yitzchok to clean it up. He prepared and cleaned up before Mincha. He says, in that recognition, we stayed for Mincha in the library.
Beautiful.
Of course, these stories stay. Again, Rev Trank, just love them, of course, the book, the ArtScroll.
Now, what's your takeaway when it comes to winning relationships from that story?
So, the takeaway is I just want to say that because it wasn't necessarily a compliment beforehand. It was the emphasis on chizuk and giving a compliment, but meaning affirming that and recognizing and appreciating when someone goes out of their way, and then, but by doing it the way he did it, imagine the chizuk he gave me, and also he was able to train others on what's important. So, Rabbi Trank was a master mechanech and understood people. He obviously, I learned a lot of elements of winning relationships from Rav Trenk Zatzal. And the takeaway there was that, mamash, here we are, and by giving a compliment in front of a tzibur like that, you can imagine it was like he was reaffirming, this is what I expect of you, Yitzchok, but it's what I expect of all Talmidim, and of course it encouraged everyone to live up to the role that he expected from us.
Beautiful, beautiful. Do you feel, I mean, Baruch Hashem, you're doing this business, you've been in this business 3-4 decades already, a long time, and technology has shifted dramatically.
Yeah.
Do you feel that, have you seen a decline in people's abilities to navigate relationships just because instead of looking a person in the eye, having a meaningful conversation, it's an email, it's a text, it's a WhatsApp, and that's it, and a putter. And that definitely, just from my perspective, definitely is somehow cutting a relationship. But I'm curious to see, as somebody who's like, you have a front row seat there, what your understanding is.
Yeah. So thank you. It happens to be in the first micro chapter. I go into that aspect, and there are a couple of takeaways. First of all, wherever possible, studies have shown this, and I have a quote from a Dr. Katzenstein, that wherever possible, still try to have a face-to-face conversation, like we're having here.
Right.
I'm sure you've done some by Zoom or
We
whatever.
have, correct.
Yeah, and it can be done, but it's still, and it's okay. It's still not the same as face-to-face. So l'chatchila, face-to-face, that's where Kadosh Baruch Hu wired us. We get to see each other. You get to see the facial expression, the tonal expression. There's this touch, feel. You get to use all the senses. Okay. Now, video conferencing is here to stay. Good. That's a level down. A phone call is a level down. Email, in general, it has a role, but one should realize that email has a negative side effect, is that, especially when it's a delicate conversation, someone sends the email, he has all the emotion in him, and he tries to interpret that into the words. When it gets read on the other side, there's no facial expression, there's no tonal expression. There's no, you don't, so therefore, the person who receives it is interpreting it many times in a very different way, and especially if it's a delicate conversation, it's unfortunately usually heading south. So that's why there happens to be, like, let's say, WhatsApp, or even when someone's sending a message, a voice message is much better than text. Yeah. Or if someone could even do a video message, is much better than just a voice message. So these are important yisaidis that we do discuss in the book, that a person should be mindful of, especially in today's day and age, where so much of our communication is digital. Try as much as possible that the person could see you, that's like video messaging, or at least expression, voice messaging, as opposed to just words. Words have a high rate of being interpreted the wrong way.
You know, you said before that you felt that, like, the key group of people that really need to appreciate a sefer like this or a book like this and make it theirs is the 20 to 40. They're starting off work, and
right.
They need to learn how to navigate the maneuver, et cetera, et cetera. But imagine if this book was read by teenagers. It's user-friendly, I think. I went through it. I mean, I teach teenagers, and I maybe I have their mindset a little bit. But imagine if we're training them in communication, in relationships, before they hit that point. And you don't have to be in the business place to appreciate right. a book like this. Right. So I don't know, like, what you were thinking, like when you wrote, did you have like a particular age or stage in mind? You're just like, hey, whoever could get benefit from this, but like.
So first of all, again, Rav Gedalia, who gave great instruction to me early on, he said clearly, he said, Yitzchok, try to go Dale Carnegie, think Dale Carnegie, a from Dale Carnegie book. Good. Now, it happens to be one of the Rabbanim, and I'm fortunate, Zaycha, to be close to many, many Rabbanim.
Take a look at the beginning, them. Beautiful letters.
Yeah,
amazing.
Thank you. So one Rav in particular told me, he says, Yitzchak, I think there should be a curriculum in seminaries. Namsh, to your point. He said, I think that the seminaries, they would take a chapter and then go through the point, a micro chapter. Again, everything is micro. It's still, even though we were talking about today's day and age communication, I'm not living under a rock somewhere. And therefore, everything is very bite-sized. Very, very bite-sized, very, for today's day and age. But Lamaisa, it is a hope that it's true to a teenager. It's written basically simple, straightforward. That's why it's nothing heavy in here, bite-sized, and tips that people could implement.
I feel like we're just literally starting, but I have one final question for you.
Ready?
What's the best way to read this book? Should you read 5 minutes before you go to sleep when you wake up in the morning? Should you read a whole chapter? Like, what would you recommend as someone who's trying to really get the full impact from the book? How should they approach it?
Okay, so thank you. I'm going to answer it two different ways. The 35 microchapters have a variety. They cover so many different areas of interpersonal relations. What we did was, and I actually spent over 35 hours on this, creating a master index. So in the back, you can go through any potential interpersonal situation that someone's in. They'll find it in the back. It's like a 20-page, an 18-page index that goes through any particular. It could be from positive to how to give, complimenting and how to deal with all different types of aspects, and it also discusses challenging, how to deal with error avoidance. So therefore, one potential way to answer it is that someone could just flip through the index and say, what tickles my fancy?
At work, boom.
What either tickles it, or what issue am I dealing with, and I want to deal with it, and then pick that chapter. The other recommendation would be not necessarily to read it in order. Open it up, but read whatever chapter, just open up to whatever you want, and then read that chapter from the beginning to the end. It's a 6 minute read, and then you can start working your way around. But just jump right in, whichever one you love, just grab it. I hope you love whichever one you open up to, obviously, but just open it up.
And
dive right in.
And don't give it away, but there's a reason why the book is orange.
Oh.
If someone wants to know the reason, they need to buy the book, correct?
Yes, of course, orange is the color of value in general. I also have tremendous hakaras hatov to Rav Shia Brander, who allowed, there were discussions, everything. Rav Shia is such a genius. It was so exciting to work with him again. Again, he was my direct boss when I was there, and we had discussions. Is it going to be a 6x9 or a unique size? And I explained how these type of publications, also because I didn't want it to be viewed as a sefer, I want it to be viewed in a unique light. He said, yes, we can go unique size, unique color, beautiful. Unique even the lamination was a very unique, and we had many conversations with Aaron Moshe. The team here at ArtScroll is second to none. Perfection, and yet...
It's so perfect. I was just thinking I could put it in my wheelie when I travel, next to my eraser. And when I need a little bit of learning, I got some learning. When I can't learn, I could just figure out how to win another relationship. It was such a pleasure talking to you. Buy the book. It's fantastic. It's easy. It's practical. It's inspiring. And it really has the potential to assist you in upgrading your relationships. Thank you very much for coming in.
Great, Yeshakayach. Thank you, Rabbi Landau.
It's a pleasure.